Okay, we're gonna do this first grade style. If you can hear my voice, clap once. If you can hear my voice, clap twice. Okay, the first grade teachers rule. Thank you guys for being here. I'm Janky DePalma. I am so excited to say that I'm the president of SMPS Austin, and I am also the director of business development for Kirksey Architecture. Welcome everybody. This is our first event for the 2021-22 year. And I'm just gonna have some really brief intros to tell you. We have some really cool things coming up. So upcoming, if you think this was really cool, get ready for what's happening for the rest of the year. We have some really great events. Keep an eye out on the website, but upcoming is gonna be our Meet the Board happy hour. And then we have, this is a really cool event, the BD Roundtable. It's a limited members only event. I think we cap it at 20 people. And this is all about BD, business development in the public sector. So if you're interested in this, I would definitely sign up for it quickly because I think registration will be opening up, but it ends quickly. So I need to stop and take a little breath, partly because I'm very nervous, also to say thank you. Everything we do in this chapter comes because of you guys. It's our members. We wouldn't have an event like this if there weren't people who thought SMPS was important. So I wanted to thank you guys all for being here. We wanted to make an event that was safe, that people could feel comfortable at, and also was available, for people who wanted to join us remotely. So this is our first hybrid event. And none of that could be done without our amazing volunteers. SMPS is a 100% volunteer-run organization. We have 0 paid staff. We all have day jobs. And somehow these amazing volunteers help put this together. And then our annual sponsors. Take a look at this group of people. These are our OG sponsors. They have given us so much support all year long during this unprecedented year. They're always here, always supporting us. So if you don't know who these people are, find them, make friends with them. They are all amazing. Next, I want to thank our luncheon sponsors. In particular, this luncheon wouldn't have been able to happen without our gold sponsors and our luncheon sponsors. So our gold sponsors, thank you so much. I hope we get to see more of you. And then our luncheon sponsors, we're really excited. We have some new people here who are supporting SMPS. And I have to stop and say thank you to our in-kind sponsors. Doing a hybrid event is hard, and I'm not really good at logistics, and luckily we find people who are good at logistics, and they had donated their time for our chapter. So the cool QR code came from Jobsite Check. They're amazing. And then this Zoom presentation is being done by Swinnerton. Thank you guys so much. Seriously, it would have been me and an iPhone, trying to figure it out otherwise. Without you guys, none of this would be possible. I do want to take one really quick second, though. So we talked about this unprecedented year. Take a drink. And last year was really hard for the chapter. It was the longest 2-week spring break we've ever had, where we were quarantined for months. And our chapters really rose to the occasion. We had an event at least once a month, most of them free. We did a site tour. We had our first sort of in-person event. We had a happy hour. All this pivoting really couldn't have happened if it weren't for our president, linked Glenn. So Glenn Hart, I want to tell you, this is from our chapter on behalf of me and the board. We just wanted to give you this. You really did so much for us, and we just want to let you know that we appreciate you. Thank you so much for everything. So with that, I'm going to stop talking. I'm here. I'm going to do one final thank you, and that's for our speaker, Peter Mullen. You have his, have you guys read his bio? This guy is insane. He's so brilliant. It is unbelievable that we have a mind like Peter helping us in our city. Project Connect is a huge milestone. It was a voter approved. And I think it's something that's really going to kind of move our city forward in terms of transportation and connection. But what really touches me about Peter is that he is so empathetic, approachable. He's going to be the type of person that is not only going to come with like great experience and ideas, but is also going to be the person who's going to help us ask the right questions, listen, find a way to really connect. And I think it's so appropriate that, Project Connect is being led by Austin Transit Partnership. So that's what we're talking about, is a real partnership within our community. So with that, I'm leaving it to the man himself, Peter Mullen. Thank you.
Thank you. Wow, thank you, Janky. That's sort of a humbling intro. So it's really kind. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. I'm still relatively new to Austin. About 6.5 years in, and I will say that this place has welcomed me and my family to a far greater degree than I ever expected. So thank you for having me today, and thank you to all of you who are Austinites, longtime Austinites, for creating this really warm, welcoming place. And we've made really lifelong friends here, one of whom is in the room. So nice to see you, Lars. Thanks for coming. So I want to tell you all a little bit about where we are with Project Connect and what's happening. As Janky mentioned, this is the voter-approved transit system for Austin. It's by far the biggest capital program that Austin's ever undertaken. Janky's right. I mean, the only way we're going to be successful doing this is if we're all working on it together as a community. And so part of my role is to figure out how to make sure that this is a system that works for, is driven by, and is built by the community as well. So while I'm a recovering architect by day, architects sometimes struggle with community engagement. Let's face it, we're control freaks by nature. But this is a case where, I have really believed strongly that the only way this is going to work is if the community is involved, and obviously you're a big part of that. So why Project Connect? Okay, this is a cliche, this image, but I don't need to tell everybody here. Austin is exploding, literally and figuratively, and it's not slowing down, right? I mean, I think of any city in the United States, we are well equipped to come out of the pandemic stronger than when we entered it. And so the question is, how do we prepare for that, right? I think we talked a little bit about this earlier this during lunch, is that we've resisted this growth to some degree, and as a result, we've resisted planning for this growth. And so Project Connect is really about preparing Austin for its urban future, which is certainly upon us. We're projected to go to 4 million residents over the course of the next 20 years. So we've got to be prepared with a transit system to move all these people. And some of you probably have seen this sequence of slides as well. So single occupancy vehicles are amazingly inefficient uses of the real estate of our public realm, right? So this is the amount of space that it takes to move 100 people if they're traveling in their own vehicles, which is where the vast majority of our Austinites travel. Bikes are a little more efficient, right? You can see how much space the same number of people take up. But public transit is significantly more efficient than either of those. And so this is how we're going to be able to move our population around as we grow into the next 20 years and beyond. We are not alone in this endeavor. I mean, we are one of many cities, mid-sized cities, and some big cities like LA, some really big cities, who have made historic investments in transit recently. And I think this is helpful to understand, we are in this company, right? This is the company that we are keeping now in terms of the kind of city that we are, in terms of our population, and frankly, the kind of city that we need to become, right? We are not a small town anymore. We are a global city, and so we need the infrastructure to basically behave like one. So Project Connect, what is it? I'm going to talk a lot about the light rail lines because it's the biggest, most efficient, and most expensive part of the program. But Project Connect is a program of many, many projects, right? And they work together as a system. And I think this is one of the things that convinced the voters that this was the right plan at the right time, and why, how we got 60% of the vote. But I think, so it's important to recognize that all of these different elements, whether it's the new light rail lines or the new bus rapid transit lines or the new neighborhood circulators or the improved red line or the future commuter line, which is the green line, all of these elements have to work together into a comprehensive transit system for our community, and that's how we're approaching it. I do also want to call out, the consulting team that is really helping Austin Transit Partnership move this forward. HDR is our program manager of record, and then the designers for the two light rail lines are AECOM and HNTB on the orange and blue lines respectively, and we've got some folks from AECOM here today, so thank you for all your great work. Janky mentioned that I'm with Austin Transit Partnership, which is a new local government corporation that was created as part of the vote last year. And we're kind of the love child of the city and Cap Metro, in that the city is the primary funding partner. Basically, the funding for Project Connect comes through a city property tax increase. And Cap Metro is the entity, obviously, that will operate the investments that we build over time, but Austin Transit Partnership was created as a standalone, independent local government corporation, and part of the idea behind that was twofold. One is, as Janky said, the only way we're going to do this is through partnership, and that's why the word partnership is in our name. And so this is very much a partnership between the city, Cap Metro, and ATP, but also recognizing that in order to make this work, we're going to have a vehicle to implement it as efficiently and effectively as we can. And so part of the idea behind creating ATP as an independent, solely focused, single mission-oriented organization was to do just that. We have an independent board of directors. There are only 2 elected officials on it. No offense to elected officials out there in the room, but the idea is that the other 3 members are community experts in the fields that are relevant to this. So the idea is, how do we actually get this done as quickly and efficiently as possible? So this is the sequence plan for the program, over the next 13 years. And so you can see some of the different aspects of the program on the left: the 2 light rail lines, the commuter metro rail lines, the existing red line, and the future green line. The green line will become towards the end of the program, in part because that's when the ridership will be out there, in terms of out there in northeast Austin, Elgin, and Manor. But a lot of these elements of the program we're implementing simultaneously right now. And if you look at the 2 top lines, the orange and blue lines, we're in that kind of year 1 period where we're going through the environmental review process. And then we'll go into final design in 2023, so that'll take us into sort of to 2025, and then the idea is that we'll be operating in 2029. So 2029, for some of us, might seem like a long way away. It's really not that far away. It's sort of a blink. And so we're off to the races. I also think it's important to give this program a little bit of historical context, right? So rail in particular is new to our recent history, but it's not new to Austin, right? So in the 19th century, we actually had 2 intercity rail lines that came to Austin, and there were 2 actually train stations in downtown Austin. So this is not something new. This is something that has always been part of our history. And in the first half of the 20th century, we had a really robust streetcar system. Hyde Park was a streetcar suburb of early Austin development. So it's just we kind of lost our way in the second half of the 20th century in terms of transit, and a lot of cities have had the same issues with the superhighway system, et cetera. But this is about bringing this back. I think it's also important to recognize some of the I think less savory aspects of our planning history. There have been many moments in our history, and in particular the 1928 plan, that systematically divided our city along racial and economic lines, and we're still feeling the impacts of some of those plans. The 28 plan basically segregated our city and moved all black and brown members of the community to East Austin, and then subsequently served them less well than folks in West Austin. And I think right now we have to be mindful of that as we're making this investment. And one of the components of the plan, which you may have seen earlier, is that it includes a $300 million anti-displacement fund that is specifically intended to help mitigate any of the negative impacts of the investment of this infrastructure in our city by reinforcing communities and supporting them as they are now, and making sure that particularly communities of color are not displaced by these investments. So this is a lens through which we see everything we do. How are we ensuring that this infrastructure serves the entire community and not just one community in particular? We're also building on the foundation of recent planning efforts by the city through the Downtown Austin Plan and Imagine Austin, but also the Austin Strategic Mobility Plan. Light rail is a component of that, and the goal of that is to get basically alternative modes of transportation other than single occupancy vehicle to 50% of our population by 2040. It's an ambitious goal, and light rail is one component of it. Obviously, cycling and other alternative mobility modes are also part of that. But that builds in a kind of infrastructure and some tools for us to be able to actually make this happen. And that brings me to some of the things that really aren't just about transit, which is that this is really about the public realm in general. Some of this is practical. We're going to be creating a lot of mess. Okay, just to prepare everybody, it's going to be ugly, right? The disruption of our community through construction is going to be intense. So just everybody saddle up, right, and get ready. But one of the things we realize is that while we're doing that, right, if we're going to be that disruptive, let's put things back not the way that they were, but the way that they should be, right? So it's really about thinking about our public realm more holistically and thinking about the program more holistically from a human-centered approach. How do we actually build bike lanes and street trees and sidewalks, and to create this really carefully and holistically designed public realm around the transit. And we're also looking at transit-oriented development, right? How do we create opportunities for development that's focused on transit and also can be set up in a way that serves our community equitably? So Cat Metro is actually in the middle of just kicking off an ETOD planning process that will create a framework for development in our city that tries to build in affordability into that framework. So anyway, this to me is what's exciting. One of the things that's exciting about this is that to transform the city, not just about building transit, but also just the public realm in general. And hopefully I can show how we're planning to do that. Part of it is about placemaking, identifying locations where we can create destinations around transit. The image on the right, is really something that I have pinned up above my desk, right? Which is to say, let's not put transit in a box. Let's make it integrated into this enhanced urban realm. I'm hopeful that we can actually take part of the drag, for example, and make that car free, right? And light rail only, right? And create these kind of like more pedestrian focused places. They also incorporating landscape into our approach. Our city is defined by its natural resources and our protection of the environment. So how do we build a landscape approach into the development of this transit system? They are not mutually exclusive. And also building in opportunities for public art. These are the things that define Austin, make this a place that's different from Houston and Dallas. No offense, Houston and Dallas folks. And so how do we actually, enhance the things that make Austin, Austin? And then how do we build innovation into our program, right? We have the benefit in Austin of not having a lot of legacy infrastructure. So we suffer the lack of having any legacy infrastructure. But the benefit is that we don't have to deal with like all this stuff that's left over that we have to maintain or try to retrofit. So when we go in and design our light rail lines, we can be at the cutting edge of light rail technology. One of the things that we're looking at, for example, is all catenary free, right? So meaning catenary is the electrical power lines up above. How do we actually use battery technology and also some other charging methods to be able to not have catenary system at all? So with our bus program going to 100% electric buses. So how do we do this? Develop the system with cutting edge technology that meets our environmental aspirations. And green tracks, are there places where we could actually plant the track bed, which is great for stormwater management, reducing heat island effect, as well as creating just a more holistic environment for our citizens. So just want to focus in on the light rail program. This is the schedule over the next year and a half, basically. We're going through the environmental process. I know I've got some NEPA wonks in the room here. Our goal is to be completed with the environmental process basically next fall and get a record of decision, a ROD, from the FTA at the end of 2022. So it's not that far away. We're at about we just released the 15% design documents in the summer, in August. And so we're moving towards 30% design. Those will be released next spring. So we're still early days, but the goal is that by the end of next year, we have the basic building blocks of the system locked in, and we can continue to move forward. The FTA is a huge important partner of ours. They're going to pick up half of the cost of the program for the light rail lines, and so that they're an important. They're with us every step of the way. Okay, so just some overview. All right, so let me get a show of hands. How many people know a lot about Project Connect? You raise your hand. Okay, good. All right. How many people know nothing about Project Connect? Okay, great. That's very honest of you. No shame in that. But so everybody's kind of somewhere in the middle, like know about it. This is perfect. Okay. So I'm going to focus really on the two light rail lines and then talk specifically about the subway downtown. So this is the orange line. And we're rotated, so north is to the right in this map. And so you can see the length of it. It runs from Slaughter Lane in the south all the way to Tech Ridge in the north. And those dotted lines at the two ends, those represent the second investment. So we're going through the NEPA process and the environmental process for the entire length, but the initial investment will run from Stastny in the south to North Lamar Transit Center at 183 in the north. And you can see that there are about 20 stations built in along the length of that line, and I'll talk about where they are and why they are where they're there. One of the aspects of the program, which is pretty cool, is that you can see that this blue line coming in from the bottom. That's coming from the airport. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But when you get to Republic Square, it basically joins with the orange line and runs interlined with the orange line north. Right, so that actually you'll be able to get on a blue line train at Crestview and take a one-ride train from Crestview to the airport. Right, so this is, again, going back to that idea, this is a system. All these elements have to work together. A couple notes about stations, right? Where we locate them, how we choose where to locate them, how far apart are they? Basically three broad criteria we use. One is, how do they connect to other aspects of the transit network, particularly bus lines and other kind of last mile connectivity. The second is, you're constantly trying to balance speed, right? So if you have fewer stations or they're farther apart, the overall system moves quicker, and convenience, right? Obviously, the more stations you have, the closer you are to a station at any given time. So we're always trying to kind of balance speed and convenience. And so having that kind of half mile to 1 mile distance between stations, and you can see how we try to have a little bit of overlap between those half mile circles, but not a lot. And then third is, obviously, we're looking to serve the public where they are, right? Focusing on areas of high intense use or destinations where you have lots of people. We are a big event city, so obviously serving that event traffic is important. We're going to be building a new Red Line station at Q2 Stadium, for example. So that organizing the system around those hotspot nodes is important. Another couple notes about stations: they want to be flat and they want to be straight, right? We have a lot of topography in Austin, right? We are not a flat city; it's a hilly city. So managing the topography and figuring out where to put stations is actually trickier than you might expect, particularly in places like South Congress, right, which is basically a big hill, right? So we got to put a flat station somewhere in there, and finding a flat place to do it is not that easy. So just to walk you through from south to north, this is the orange line. So we have, and you can see these circles represent essentially a 10-minute walk shed around the station. So you can start to see how those communities will be served by this 10-minute walk from the station. So we have a station at Slaughter Lane and another one at William Cannon. And then in the initial investment, the southern terminus of the system will be at Stastny. We also have park and rides at some of our stations on the perimeter, so that people who are traveling from farther out or from places that are beyond that 10-minute walk shed can drive to the station at the perimeter and then get on a line and take it into the core. Moving north, you can see we have another station at South Congress Transit, existing South Congress Transit Center, which is just south of 290. Another station at St. Edwards. And then moving north, another one at Oltorf, South Congress, and then Auditorium Shores. When we get to South Congress, the orange line, which is generally traveling at grade, right? So we're on the surface in the middle of the street, middle of South Congress, will go into a tunnel, right? And we'll then travel in a tunnel under the lake and continue in a tunnel all the way up to MLK. And I'll talk a little bit more about how that works in a second. So it means that the downtown area for both the orange and blue lines will be essentially a subway system. So moving north, in downtown, we have an orange line station at Republic Square. Another one centered around essentially 12th and 15th Street, so serving the Capitol and the Capitol complex. Then moving up north, stop at the Drag at UT, one at the north end of the Drag between 27th and 29th Streets. Another station at 38th Street serving the Hyde Park neighborhood, one at the Triangle serving Allendale, and then moving north, Koenig, Crestview, and then the North Lamar Transit Center. So you can see that the logic starting to emerge about where stations are located. Obviously, Crestview, for example, is a hugely important station because there is a Red Line station at that intersection, and it's an area that's really has the potential to grow a lot. I think it's a really important transit-oriented development location where, we'll start to have, and we're seeing it already, places like the Domain and elsewhere, nodes of density, and that are built around transit, right? So that's part of how we're going to grow as a city going forward. So you can imagine if you're a commuter and you live northwest in Cedar Park, right? You could get on a Red Line train, take it down to Crestview, transfer to the Orange Line or the Blue Line, and then take that downtown, right? And so really convenient, easy transfer. And then going north, in the future investment, we have stops at Rumburg, Breaker, Parmer, and Tech Ridge. Okay, so the other second light rail line is the Blue Line. The Blue Line runs from the airport along essentially East Riverside, that corridor all the way down to the South Central waterfront, where it crosses over the lake on a bridge, and then goes into the subway tunnel on the north side of the lake, and then joins up with the Orange Line at Republic Square, and then continues north with the Orange Line. So again, Austin Airport, I mean, you can imagine how great is it? You get off the plane, you walk out of the terminal directly onto a train, you take it straight to the convention center or to your hotel downtown. Most cities would die for that kind of connectivity, and we're going to have it, from the day one of having our system built. This is an image of what that station at the airport would look like, basically coming in right between those two existing parking garages. So really quick walk, to the terminal. And when the terminal expands, it's going to be expanding actually towards those garages, and so it'll actually come closer to the station than it is even today. Again, moving down Riverside, there'll be a stop at Montopolis, one at Faro, and one at Pleasant Valley, the Riverside station at Pleasant Valley. Pleasant Valley is a hugely important corridor. There's a Metro Rapid line that we're going to be putting on Pleasant Valley, similar to the 801, 803 buses that we have now. That's also the site of River Park, which is a new 95-acre development that's being built by Presidium and their partners. So this is the place I think we're going to see a lot of new residents. And how many people have driven down East Riverside recently? So highly recommend it because it's already, you can see the development coming and already happening. I mean, basically there are multifamily buildings, cropping up very close to Riverside, and you can imagine 8 years from now, 9 years from now, when the Blue Line is up and running, that East Riverside could be continuous multifamily housing from basically 71 all the way to 35. And I know some people that's scary, but I think it's going to really contribute to our vitality in our community by having people close together and close to transit with easy access to transit. We have a stop at Lakeshore, so near all that new development that's happening near the Oracle headquarters. One in Travis Heights, so serving one of our historic communities. Station at Waterfront, so directly adjacent to the new South Central Waterfront development at the Statesman property. That's right here. And then we come over the lake on a bridge. So whereas the orange line is going under the lake in a tunnel, the blue line will go over the lake in a bridge. And then when it gets to the north side of the lake, we'll go into the side of the lake, the side of the bank of the lake, into the tunnel. And then it travels up to basically the convention center, turns left, and then connects with the orange line. So that's essentially the layout or the alignment of the orange and blue lines, and that, to give you the big picture. And I want to talk a little bit about what's happening downtown with the subway, because I think both it's pretty fun to talk about subway, but also there are some really exciting, I think, placemaking opportunities that we're creating and exploring. And so again, it's important to go back and look at the history, right? So if you look at the plan, original Waller plan for Austin, which is basically downtown today, you've got the lake at the southern end, you've got Shoal Creek on the west, Waller Creek on the right, on the east, the Capitol at the north, Congress Avenue, Axial, right up to the, I mean, it's a great plan. And then these four squares, right? Wooldridge, Republic, Brush, and Hamilton Square. Hamilton Square was lost to us, I'm not exactly sure when, but 3 out of the 4 squares still exist. And so part of our goal, I think, with how we're in thinking about the downtown section of the alignment in the subway is how do we actually reinforce and strengthen that kind of basic underlying structure to our city plan. And it really centers around 4th Street itself, right? 4th Street is the hub where everything comes together, right? All the lines come together, and I think it's also really where our greatest kind of public space opportunity is, connecting those historic squares, Republic and Brush Square. And you can see Brush Square is right adjacent to the convention center on the right, and Republic Square, obviously, recently renovated by Austin Parks Foundation and the Downtown Austin Alliance, has become one of our great public spaces. So just to show you how all the lines come together, you've got the existing red line that currently comes into the downtown station right there at basically at Brush Square. The orange line is coming up on the west, up essentially underground under the lake, but basically underneath Guadalupe in terms of its alignment. The blue line comes over on a bridge on the east side of downtown, goes underground, under Trinity Street, goes up to 4th Street, takes a left turn on 4th Street, connects with the orange line at Republic Square, heads north, underground along Guadalupe. The future green line will share the alignment with the red line where it comes downtown. Obviously, when it gets out east, it goes farther east while the red line heads north. The the future Gold Line, right, which is intended initially as a bus Metro Rapid line, but future could become a light rail line going up Trinity to the north up to Highland Mall. And then Metro Rapid, essentially the Expo line will run from the Expo Center down San Jacinto or up Trinity and then across 4th Street. So all 4th Street is where all these lines come together. Remember the importance of the system. And so we're at that 4th Street location, we're creating what we're calling the Downtown Transit Hub, which is a multi-level system, including a continuous mid-level concourse that ties all of these lines together to create really easy transfer and connections between all aspects of the system. And then you can see how the stations are located along that transit hub. We've got basically 4 underground stations, Randy Mack, this new convention center, Brush Square station, which really is a connection between the above grade station for the Red Line and then the downtown transit hub, a new station at Congress Avenue, a new station at Republic Square, and then another underground station. It's not connected as part of the hub, but a few blocks to the north up at Government Center up near 15th Street. So here's another plan view of that hub. We've got the hub is basically described in yellow. That's that continuous underground concourse connecting all these different stations. Those sort of salmon colored boxes represent the above ground entrances, main entrances into the hub. So you can see how they're spaced out along that length. And importantly, you've got 4th Street as being this corridor that has 3 along its length and 2 at either end. We'll talk about that in a second. One of the ideas behind the hub is that how do we actually make this transit system as easy to use and easy to navigate for people of all abilities, right? For able-bodied people, this is not a problem, right? But if you're either in a wheelchair or you've got 3 kids or you're carrying luggage, frankly, from the airport, right? Having this underground concourse where you can actually move between the lines with real ease and speed is going to be a real big asset to us. And that's who we're designing this for. It's not for the able-bodied person, it's for everybody. So this is a cross section through 4th Street, and you can see those different levels of the downtown transit hub system. The street level up top, the train level at the bottom, and then this intermediate concourse level that allows for this connectivity between various lines and to make that transfer from the street down to the trains. This is a blow up of that. It shows how they're all connected and some of the elements of it. And I'll talk about how we make this inviting and easy to navigate, and also obviously connected all these levels through elevators, so it's 100% accessible. Few things that we're trying to build into our station design, right? And one is really large, generous escalators and stairs, right? We are going to be a bigger city. We've got to build facilities to accommodate lots of people. Having long sight lines. So this is a multi-level system, a lot of it underground. Having these long sight lines with views to different levels so that people can get oriented and really know where they are at all times. And then access to natural light, right? Being aware of where you are relative to the street, right? And bringing daylight into the system. And so these are some of the principles we're using as we start to imagine the design of these stations. One of the benefits of having this multi-level system is that at the platform level, we can create double height spaces, really generous spaces that are ennobling. So when people are going underground, they don't feel like they're in an unsafe rabbit warren. They can see where they're going, they can see other people, and it's really generous and inviting. And then some of the technology that we're planning on using. This is not the subway in Lower Manhattan, right? No offense, I'm a New Yorker, so I love the subway in Lower Manhattan. But we're building in really state-of-the-art technology. So platform screen doors. So it feels a little bit more like the airport, right? Where the train is not there, you're basically protected. People can't get into the tracks. When the train comes, it stops at the right place every time. The doors open in the right place every time. You know where to stand. There's clear signage. There's clear wayfinding. It's all very comfortable and easy to navigate. The other great thing about the concourse is that it allows us to basically design this from the street down, right? I like to say, like the heart wants what the heart wants. the train wants what the train wants, right? Like, you don't tell the train what it wants. It can only go in certain ways. So the train down here is going to want to go where it wants to go. It has certain turning radii. It has certain vertical curves it can manage. But because we have this concourse layer in between, the street can want what the street wants. And we can really design 4th Street to be what 4th Street wants to be, or what it can be. And so going back to that original plan, we've got the 2 squares at either end of this transit corridor. We have the ability, I think, at the surface level, at the street level, create this new green spine that cuts across downtown. This is what 4th Street looks like today. It's always been kind of a back street. There's going to be actually a lot of redevelopment on the east side of 4th Street in particular. Maybe it could look something more like this, right? Something that's really activated by retail, that's really focused on pedestrians, where cars are limited. I don't think we're going to be able to get cars off entirely, but how can we limit the amount of car traffic so that pedestrians clearly are the priority? Or like this, places where you can have, buskers and musicians and mimes and all that great urban vitality that great cities have. And then the stations start to contribute to this, right? So you've got 3 stations along 4th Street. The 2 at the end really become bookends for the corridor. And so we've got these plaza areas at either end. This is on the east side, the space between Brush Square and the Convention Center, where it's closed off to traffic already, where we can have a really generous entrance down into the subway system. And then on the west side, at Republic Square, I think this is an area where there's not a lot of traffic on the street. It gets closed down all the time for farmers markets. Let's see if we can neck down the traffic lanes even more, get some real estate where we can have a really generous entrance. So at both ends of this corridor, you have this kind of signature entrance structure. And there are precedents for this kind of structure all around the world. This is from Bilbao, Norman Foster design. This is Hudson Yards in New York. Very recently, Toshiko Mori is the architect of this. And then even slightly smaller scale, but really elegant, beautifully designed entrances into the system. This is in Philadelphia, that I think work really well with some of our historic fabric as well. You can see Philadelphia City Hall on the left. So having these structures that either in signaling the transit system below and provide really generous entrance into it. And then in the middle at Congress Avenue, this is really the hub of the hub, right? And going back to history, we used to have a train station downtown, right? A real train station, like most cities. So let's see if we could bring that back, right? And it turns out we have a parking lot at the center of literally the best real estate in our entire city has had a parking lot on it for 50 years, right? So we can do something better. And looking, like other cities, these transit buildings become kind of important civic elements in the urban realm. And they get combined with other great public programs like public markets or other items. This is a more modern version of the Fulton Center downtown, and I love this little totem down here on the left where you can see all of the subway lines. This is where they all come together, and so there's a piece of architecture that unites that and creates a place around them. So this is not a design, just to be clear, but this is an idea or a concept that at the corner of 4th and Congress, or as what Dee Peart at the Downtown Austin Alliance says, the corner of Main and Main, you could have a building the piece of civic architecture that combines a train station with other public programs, that brings natural light down into the system, really generous public spaces, and maybe some development above, right? And so that corner would then be marked by a piece of civic architecture. On the east side of downtown, it gets a little bit different, right? So you can see the concourse continues and the transit hub continues down Trinity Street, down to Cesar Chavez. And then at Cesar Chavez, we have an entrance, the Rainy Mac station, basically at the corner of Cesar Chavez and Trinity. But we're looking at 2 potential entrances south of Cesar Chavez, and really connecting people to Rainy Street to the east and to the lake to the south. And think about, we have the benefit of also putting a lot of money and investments into our green spaces in this location. Obviously, the Hike and Bike Trail and what the Trail Foundation is doing there, Waterloo Greenway directly to the east. And so you can imagine coming from the airport, coming to the Rainy Mac station, coming out of the subway into a garden, right? What could be a more Austin experience than that, right? Right on the lake. And then this is also where that the bridge coming over the lake connects. The bridge will have a pedestrian and cycling component to it as well as trains. So that those pets and cyclists can come across the bridge and then connect to the Hike and Bike Trail or connect to the Waterloo Greenway Trail and head north to see a show at the new Moody Amphitheater. Which how many people have been to Moody Amphitheater? I got to make a plug for. It's pretty great. Gotta say. So anyway, if you haven't gone, I highly encourage it. So anyway, that's my show for today. It's just a little bit of a taste of what's to come. Obviously, we're still early days on the design, but I think if I leave you with anything, it's a couple things. One is, don't be dismayed by this very small text. I don't know how that got so small, but get involved. No. We really need you. I don't know what happened there. It's kind of cute. Really need you to get involved. Okay, seriously. Like this is obviously the biggest thing we've ever done in Austin. We need as many people to get involved and make this thing a reality as possible. It's going to make it better, right? This is not just about building it. It's about building it as to be fantastic. And so we're trying to bring that aspirational aspect to this, and your participation is critical to that. We have created a whole series of neighborhood working groups to break the alignment down into smaller groups. So if you live in one of these areas, right, this is a great way to get involved in your specific neighborhood and the things that are important to you there and important to your neighborhood. So, please just really encourage you all to get on this journey with us. Really appreciate your time today, and look forward to everything to come. So thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Okay. Well, we have a little bit of time for questions. Before I get sidetracked, though, which is very likely to happen, I wanted to let you guys know about the parking. So there was a little bit of an issue with the parking. We should be getting a code to get out, but I was told to let you guys know, and I forgot during my intro, so that was like the first thing on my mind. I'm going to ask a question just because I know it takes most people like a half second to think of a question. And so I'll give you like a starter question, sure, and then we'll do that. So my starter question actually has to do with, so this is really, like when I see this, I get super jazzed. I grew up in San Francisco. This is all that I miss from being in the Bay Area. But change is scary for most people. So tell me some of your thoughts on how do you capture this enthusiasm, but also sort of overcome people who already are feeling like Austin isn't what it was in certain number of years ago. So I'm going to move, and then you can answer that question.
Okay. Yeah, it's a good question. I think, especially in Austin, and rightly so. I mean, I'm, first of all, I'm an urbanist, through and through, born and raised New Yorker, so that's my bias, but I recognize that's a bias. And I also, the resistance to growth, I will give it its due. It's part of what's kept Austin's character really specific and alive. So I think the way, look, the train has left the station on us as a big city, number one. I think that, to me, the way that we help people through this growth is to really work with the community to find solutions that bring what makes Austin into the future, right? It's like how, and this is, I'll be honest, I don't have the solution. There is no silver bullet for how to do it. I think we're trying to employ a bunch of tools that we think help to retain or to perpetuate the Austin spirit and its character. But the only way this is why I think it's important to get people involved, is the only way to actually do that, to kind of keep Austin alive and keep its soul alive, is to get people involved in the process, right? And to give them the opportunity to contribute, and to think differently. And I think we have the one crime that I think we can commit is getting complacent about our success, right? We have been the beneficiaries of economic prosperity for a very long time. And especially now, coming out of a pandemic where a lot of places are really struggling, right? And it's not to say we don't have our struggles. We do have our struggles, but we also have the economic tools to be able to actually address some of the issues facing our community. And if we don't actually take advantage of that economic opportunity to actually do that, to address some of our issues, then shame on us, right? So that's all I would say. I think that's the only misstep.
Okay, reflecting on your small print slide a moment ago, this is my effort to get involved in a very small way. Are you specifying and procuring your cars for the future lines with space for bicycles and wheelchairs so that a person who is running on wheels can actually use the transit system?
100%. Good, great way to contribute. Thank you for that.
Peter, fantastic project. I think you're right, it addresses so many things that we need to address in our community in terms of connectivity and eventually affordability and lots of other things that are issues here in the community. Again, touching on the idea of getting involved, considering that the audience right now are design professionals, local design professionals, what opportunities do you see, or can you talk for a moment about how this community can get involved in, or what opportunities will be to be involved in a professional way?
Yeah. So there's two things. There's one, as members of the community, right? One of the things that's coming up very soon, we're having a series of community design workshops on some specific areas. We're actually having one on Thursday about the whole area around the Pleasant Valley and Riverside intersection. And those are being hosted essentially by those working groups. So again, just check the website. I think having design professionals at those events is really crucial. And then, look, there's going to be a lot of work that's going to come out of this program. We obviously want to involve the local talent as much as possible. We are working within the federal procurement system for sure, because that's just the world we're operating in. So, everything is through public, solicitation process and all that stuff. So I think, we'll have information on that on the Austin Transit Partnership website as those procurements come forward, but also through all the standard ways that, you go after public work, will be part of that as well.
Hi, great presentation. I'm going to clarify that I am a new transplant here to Austin from Minneapolis and went through this same process. And one of the outcomes of doing this is easy transportation for everybody. So we had a ton of crime happening on rail stations, and so I'm curious what processes or thoughts you can put in place to kind of rally away from that if possible.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I'll be honest, that's one I don't have the answer for. One of the things that Cap Metro has just recently done is their board approved the creation of a transit police. And part of that, I think, is to be able to have a public safety force that is really focused on the needs of the transit system and the transit network. So obviously, it's just getting stood up right now. But again, specific policing and public safety strategies, I can't answer. But obviously, that's really good experience and one that we probably need to go talk to the folks in Minneapolis about. So thanks for that.
I think we have time for one more question. Oh, good. We have one from our Zoom audience. Okay, I'm going to read it and you can't see me because I'm hiding behind this giant door. Okay, here it is. How will you mitigate disruptions to traffic downtown during construction over the next 8 years? Being that we already have so much congestion especially during rush hour. Okay. You have your
Conveniently hiding behind the Zoom platform. No. So, look, obviously, it's going to be an issue, right? We've got some time to prepare for it. One of the things that we're the city of Austin, obviously, a huge partner of ours, and so one of the things that we're going to be working on with them is to figure out how to manage our construction process, again, to minimize the disruption. Typically, there are trade-offs with all these processes, right? So if you work on the weekends or at night, you can limit the duration of the construction, right? So you've got to balance. Do I prefer to, again, and it's not one size fits all. Some places, working on weekends in proximity to office space, maybe not so bad. So we're going to be looking at all those different variables with the city to figure out how we can minimize the disruption to the greatest extent possible.
We are officially out of time, and someone buzzed us to remind them to let me know. So, one thing, because again, sidetracking happens to me a lot. We have some QR codes that you'll get when you exit. It's just like a little slip of paper. That's going to get you out of the parking garage. I know you want to get out of here, function with the rest of your day. Now, something that I'm not sidetracked about is how excited and grateful I am for this presentation. Our comments have been blowing up about how much people have enjoyed hearing you speak just from our Zoom audience, and I've been poking around and looking at everyone's faces, and everyone is so excited to hear this. Peter, thank you so much. This was so impressive. I just get chills thinking about what the city's gonna look like, like once my kids graduate from school, and like how different it's gonna be in just what you said, a blink of an eye. So on behalf of the board and everyone attending, thank you so much. It was absolutely fantastic.
Thank you.
Today. It's been a while, so I hope to see more of you at more of our events. Please keep an eye out on the website. There's the happy hour coming up. We're going to be doing more of these virtual hybrid events too, so hope to see you more. And thanks again. This is our first event, and I'm so happy you all came. Thank you.
Thank you for doing that.
No, my pleasure. My pleasure. Oh, great. Thank you very much. Thanks for supporting the organization.
Peter Fox-Paymash with the city.
Oh, good to see you.
Look forward to talking to you
tomorrow.
We gotta set that up.
Yeah, great.
And I'm also going to be moderating a panel next week
Oh, right, for you alive. There we go.
Yeah.
We'll talk on Friday about that.
Right.
Okay, great.
But I
Great
wanted
to meet you,
say-
though. Great to meet you. All right, so